So, we're back again, third podcast, and here I have Luke Walker,
What's going on, Luke?
my namesake. Man.
Great name.
Yeah. So, today we have a lot to talk about. Firstly, of course, we do it on this podcast. We have to get to know you. So, if you want to let the people know a little bit about who Luke Walker is.
Who is Luke Walker? Okay, I'm Luke. I'm born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. I attended St. Mary's College, and then, sorry about that, Luke. I'm primarily a musician. I play the steel pan, play some other instruments, piano, percussion, flute. I currently attend Harvard College, and I'm doing a dual degree program with Harvard College and Berklee College of Music.
So he's in a very unique position now. So I brought him on initially to talk about music, but then he's attending Harvard. And this week we've had some recent exciting developments. Well, actually very scary for a lot of people who are in the US right now from Trinidad, where we are seeing the Trump administration issued, if you can let them know. So it was something along the lines of, if you have either the F1 or the M1 visa, and your school is fully online, you have to return to your home country.
Yes, so in response to the coronavirus pandemic, lots of schools were forced to go online. Schools that would usually be fully in-person classes, a lot of them, including Harvard, has been forced to go all the way online in order to protect the health of their students and faculty, right? So it's actually not that new a policy. Even before Corona, the policy was that if your degree program was completely online, you couldn't get a visa to enter the country because you can do it from anywhere in the world, right? So they wouldn't give you an F1 visa if your program was fully online. So what happened in March, many schools across the country just went completely online as an emergency measure to stop the spread of coronavirus, including Harvard. And those guidelines that were laid out by ICE at that period were quite flexible, so they allowed students to stay in the US and do online classes and keep their visas. So that extended from the end of the spring semester into the summer. But recently, on Monday, they announced new guidelines that would take effect from the fall. And basically, they said they're not as flexible. They're not giving exceptions to schools that usually are in person and have just gone online for the pandemic. If for any college in the US, if your school is completely online, what they're saying is you're not allowed to enter or reside in the US. So you could actually face deportation if you're on an F1 visa.
ICE will come for you.
Yeah, it's kind of scary because I think the US education system thrives on international students, and they really value us as a community. So there's thousands upon thousands of international students across the US. And it's quite cruel. It's cruel and reckless because it's only announced a few weeks before the semester starts, so it doesn't give us the opportunity to transfer. One loophole is that if you transfer to a school that's in person, then you can keep your visa.
Right.
Or you can leave the country and still continue education. But it's so last minute. It's hard to take advantage of those loopholes.
That's the thing. And even with that, some countries, their borders are closed.
Yeah, where are you supposed to go?
It's going to be so much stress to bring back these people. Now, so that was something new that you told me about there, where you said that it's been, and I guess that is true, and it makes sense. If you are online, it doesn't make sense being in the country. It doesn't make sense you having a visa. But one of the things I want to talk about is, okay, what is the rationale behind that? Is it that they're just trying to enforce a specific law? Because I have a different view. Before you told me of that, my view was that I think it's a power move to force schools to open during the fall semester. Do you get that same sense? Or?
Yeah, that's sort of the general idea, and we're trying to figure out what's the actual rationale behind this, because it's really hard to see who actually benefits from this policy. It's quite political. I mean, this whole pandemic and the US response has turned completely political at the expense of
everyday people.
Nearly 200,000 lives that they've lost, right? So it's quite reckless and dangerous. And it's an extension of, it's not too surprising, it's an extension of this strict immigration policy by this administration. I mean, ICE has been around doing atrocious things for a long time. detaining people at the border, separating families, and such.
But even with that, so I thought the same thing. I said, one of the things Trump ran on was he's going to lock down on immigration, become strict. But first of all, one thing that he's also very adamant about is the economy. Now, I have some figures here. I don't like to bring figures on the show. You feel free to fact check me or whatever. But there's something like $45 billion that international students bring into the country. Now, if you have that on one side and you ran on making the economy great, you would want these international students to be here. And even on the immigration side, it also seems to not make sense because these are people who are actually contributing to the economy. You should want, if you want to cut down on immigration, you should want to cut down on immigration of people who don't benefit the country. And the third thing I would say that, as I said, none of this making sense to me. The third thing that doesn't make sense is that if it's an immigration move, it's too temporary because as soon as you go back online, they're going to come back in. It's nothing that I see benefiting in the long run. So all of this, as I said, it kind of makes no sense. And as you said, it's politicized and it's only affecting the average person in the US. So what was Harvard's response to this?
Harvard, well, they apparently heard the news just as we heard it, which was just on Monday. So it's a very current issue and it's evolving right now. Harvard took out a lawsuit, and Harvard and MIT jointly took out a lawsuit against this bill to make a restraining order against enforcing this policy in the district courts in Boston. And some other schools have joined, like Northeastern has also joined that lawsuit. So what that will do is put a restraining order and hold off the implementation of this policy until it's properly tried in court. And that, even if that works, we're still unsure if we're in the country, we could still face deportation as long as that's over.
Yeah, and one thing, so I read briefly on what the lawsuit was about, and the sense that I got is that they're suing because, as I said, one, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and two, it's very vague. So they haven't made restrictions on to what extent do these classes have to be hybrid. So so between online and full in person, you're going to have hybrid. So to what extent? So can I just say, I'm not doing fully online because my students have to come in to collect materials every day or something like that. Could that count, and could they use that as a workaround, So I think that a lot of this is so unclear, and I really hope that they sort of go back and reverse, because as I said, it's not making a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, as you said earlier, there's no right way to do immigration in America. You can't win.
You can't.
Like for many years, the Republicans would say, we're cracking down on illegal immigration. If you want to come to this country, you can do it the right way. Come through legally, right? And then Trump, even in 2015, there was a tweet that said, "Why are we letting the international students come and study in the U.S. and they can't stay?" So now they're showing their true colors. Like there's no way to win. There's no way to actually do it. There's no right way to get in the country.
That's why I said it's so temporary. It hurts the economy a lot, and it just doesn't. Even if it's let's say an immigration lockdown move, I find it still temporary. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But you know what? We'll see how it is. We see how it goes.
Yeah, let's not talk about the international students who'd have to go back to vulnerable countries and bring the virus with them. The U.S. has the amount of cases lately that would pose a great danger to all these countries from all over the world where the students come from, if they can even travel home, and that's the first big issue, right?
Because I think Trinidad would make a bit of a scene. But we will see. As you said, I think it's Monday. Rowley's going to be speaking again, is it? I think so.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Well, whenever next he speaks, I think he should address this matter because a lot of his people who are in the U.S. are terrified right now and are very concerned. They're trying to get their things in order. And hopefully we come out of this unscathed,
Yeah, I think, for instance, Trump's Muslim ban was shut down pretty well in the courts. So I think we have a chance for this to not ever become law.
And the thing is, I follow Trump quite closely since his election, and this sort of thing is pretty characteristic of him. Not in that he is against immigration. Of course, he is, or he seems to be. But the idea that what he often does is say something or try to put something in place that's very extreme and then sort of cut it back. For example, the most recent example I could think of was his announcement that he's going to leave the World Health Organization by sometime next year. I don't think he will leave. Well, that's just my personal thought. I think that it's a scare tactic for them to put things in place that he wants. So maybe this is him trying to force these universities to open. Now, I can't tell you his motivation for that, but I that's just how I see it, to be honest. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Anything else I wanted to talk about with respect to this? Ooh, now, I heard Harvard is still charging full tuition.
That's a big issue. Yeah, I mean, they went online. Classes are fully online, and not only the same tuition, the tuition actually increased from last year. It got bigger, and and fully online. It's madness because the extension school that offers pretty much the same standard of courses but online. It's like a separate school within Harvard for people who can't really come in person. And they offer basically the same courses, but the cost of those courses are so much cheaper. And it right now we can't really see the difference between those courses and the courses offered to college students. So the main question is the Harvard degree really worth that huge markup? That's sort of, I guess that's the argument they would put forth, because that's the difference between the mainly online courses and the college courses would be that degree you get in the end.
Right. Now, I'm also looking to go to the University of Pennsylvania, and the intention is for me to stay for the first semester in Trinidad. Now, they haven't cut down their pricing either, so I'm just waiting to see. They're moving a lot more cautious. They haven't made such large plans or such specific plans as Harvard to go fully online. They said it's really up to the student. So I could decide to go up, I could stay and do online, but they haven't changed the price. So I'm looking out for that. I definitely am. Another thing is that it really seems, on the face of it, that along with this, I think a month ago they stopped issuing H-1B visas, which would allow you to work after you leave school, or at least that's one of the uses. So what I'm seeing now is that the people who finish school and were looking to get a job in the US, they can't. They have to come back home. All their career plans have just been squashed, and that's just adding insult to injury. But I want to shift away from this depressing talk. So Luke Walker here, as he was saying, he is doing a dual degree, Harvard and Berkeley, one of the biggest schools in the US for academics, and one of the biggest schools in the US. Or is it the biggest school for music, or the best?
Well, I'm sort of biased. I would say it's the best college right now for jazz and contemporary music.
And how are you enjoying your experience?
I'm really, really enjoying it. I mean, it's the best of both worlds. I can get the greatest, basically, conservatory education at Berkeley, but also do whatever I wanted at Harvard, and still get a degree from Harvard and a degree from Berkeley at the same time. So I'm really excited.
But is it stressful? More stressful?
It's stressful. I'd say the most stress comes from actually scheduling and dealing with conflicts, like scheduling conflicts between the two, and administrative issues in Berkeley. But also, yeah, it is a challenge because I'm doing a full Harvard coursework, and the Berkeley stuff is just extra. So it's like doing stuff on top of a whole Harvard degree. So yeah,
that
it's
is
pressure.
rough. I actually want my brother to do it. I've been telling him about it. He has to go.
He should.
Oh boy. All right. So you said you're doing jazz. How are you incorporating, because you're doing pan, right? How are you incorporating that into it? And are you able to bring across the TRINI flavor into what you're doing?
Right. Yeah, that's really important to me. It's a good question because I actually did not study jazz at all before going to Berkeley. Berkeley is well known for jazz, and I wanted to study jazz, so that's why I went to Berkeley. But really, I had known nothing about jazz. I grew up playing all types of music, but lots of Calypso and lots of classical music as well. And now I've spent 2 years studying jazz. I'm sort of in this limbo state between all these different genres, different influences. So I can't really position myself anywhere right now. I feel sort of orphaned in the musical sphere. That's why right now I'm currently working on like finding my own sound and where I fit into that scene. Right. I would always carry my TRINI heritage. That's why I love playing pan. It always brings up questions. People love to hear about it. I love talking about my country. I love how pan is linked so intricately and so strongly to my country and my identity as Trinidadian. So that always follows me wherever I go. Even if I am playing jazz, I would always be TRINI, and I'm always there in that space to educate my peers as well on my music, my culture, and they are generally really receptive to hearing me talk about Calypso.
That's amazing. Now, yes, right now, so you're saying this sort of limbo state, trying to figure out your sound. But ideally, if you had to say where you would be with music in, let's say, the next 5-10 years, what would you say to that?
Right. Well, the reason why I sort of would identify as a jazz musician, I feel like jazz is a broad enough term to sort of encompass everything that I've been a part of and everything that I enjoy playing. And right now I got into a really exciting program at Berkeley called the Global Jazz Institute. And they bring together a really exciting community from all over the world, and they have all these different influences from everywhere. And I heard a concert from their alums a few months ago. That's before I applied for the program. And it was like hearing music for the first time again, because that sort of music I'd never heard before. It's sort of not what I had ever imagined jazz could be. And sort of if I continue with this program and go on, I'd actually do my master's with this program after Harvard. And that would really set me up well in that sphere of jazz, but not just traditional jazz, but this whole new wave of fusion of cultures from all over, from world music. And I mean, as a steel pan player who doesn't typically have a space in traditional ensembles, like even in jazz ensembles, even in big band, I can't get into a big band because there's no steel pan role. And I can't get into big orchestras because those tend to be conservative and not want to include external instruments like the steel pan in there. So this community has really allowed me to find a new and forge my own space in these communities.
That's amazing. All right. Now, you mentioned Calypso a while back, and that was your passion. I went to your most recent concert in Trinidad, and you had a lot of those Calypsos. Some I knew, some I didn't know. How do you feel now that we are sort of moving away from it, from the hype around Calypso?
Yeah, for a while I was a traditionalist. I love my Calypso, old-time Calypso. But more recently, I love the new music as well coming out of Trinidad. I think the quality is really high and the creativity is really inspiring. So I think it's sad that we've sort of lost some aspects of that culture. I think we should have put more resources and emphasis in preserving it. For a while we did not support Calypsonians. It's ridiculous to even think of having a career as a Calypsonian. Like, what do you do? There's minimal attendance at the tents, and we don't support the music, especially outside Carnival. So I do regret that shift away from Calypso a bit.
But do you think, just as you were saying, this new fusion that's coming out, it seems that there's a music shift like worldwide, sort of. So you think that it's just inevitable that Trinidad, is moving on to newer things, trying different things?
Well, we shouldn't always think the shift is external. I think there's a shift more towards music of Africa and the African diaspora.
Right.
It's not that we have to rise to a new wave. Yeah, I think if you listen to pop music today, the most popular music, it really borrows heavily on dancehall and African music. And we are in that sphere. We can really get on board and ride this wave and we can push our music further. We have a great opportunity right now to do that because of that shift you're talking about. It's not that we have to change to fit a new image of what's good music right now. because I think we have what a lot of people are looking for, and we can really capitalize on that.
Right. But what would you say is keeping us from making it mainstream? Because we are seeing, and you mentioned this when you had this conversation a few days ago, we are seeing the African sort of beat permeating our dancehall in Trinidad. But you also said that maybe we need to tweak it a little bit to make it, let's say mainstream. And that would have to do with the topics of our music,
Well, yeah, I guess initially I thought, or maybe the content of our lyrics aren't really accessible to other populations, and they can't really relate. But then I thought, if you listen to Afrobeat singers, half the time we have no idea what they're singing.
That's true.
I listen to Burna Boy, and he speaks English most of the time, but I have no idea what he's saying most of the time. And especially American listeners, they're not going to understand a word that we're saying. So even if we spoke conscious music, they might not even care to listen. So I think that's not the whole picture, like what we sing about. I guess the conversation of what we sing about should be more internally focused, and like how we want to influence our own community and how our music reflects our own society. That's what should be the main focus of what our music speaks to, not thinking about like what's accessible to outside, because I think Afrobeat proves that we don't really have to be understood vocally to make it big, right, and be popular.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective there. I could get on board with that. Because now that you mention it, I don't know half the words in those Afrobeat songs. That's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about soca. Now, I love soca.
Me too.
All right. I think that it's superior to dancehall, but that's another that's a talk for another day. So I really love soca, but I can't say I think so. Answer this question for me. See if you can. Do you think soca is getting better, or if it's getting? That's a very difficult question.
I don't know. I feel like if you put anybody from our generation or any generation before and play soca from the 2000s or like classic soca, and we would definitely jump up to that a lot quicker than what we hear today. I think that's generally a trend with all music. We look back at the past and really reminisce, and I think what's done in the past so long ago is always better. Every generation feels like their music that happened in the past is better than the young cats, right? But so I think the same thing might even happen later on when we grow and our kids are making a whole new type of music. We would want to call back to this generation of
bad.
Yeah. I think only time will tell really what stands out in the long run.
That's interesting. How I would answer that question, I would say that the variety that we have now is amazing. You get to listen to so many up and coming artists, some new artists, some names in the books other than Kes and Marshall, who are making some amazing music. So I really like that. But what I would say is, to some extent, the creativity, while the variety, and I would go as far to say the quality is increasing, the creativity is a little lacking. Mostly, I would say, because we sort of have these people making beats, some amazing beats, and then we have these soca artists who could just come on and use their lyrical skills. They don't have to really think too much about making their own rhythm and then their lyrics to it. Thoughts on that? Right. Do you think that that's a good way to go, bad way to go, or you're indifferent, really?
I mean, I think it's a response to soca having to be popular during Carnival, and soca artists really needing gigs, needing their songs to be played on radio, and needing them to be played at fetes, and especially played on the road for Road March. So I think it sort of arose out of needing to be played on the radio, because it's so much easier if there's one beat. DJs could mix in all the 5 different songs on that one beat, and those 5 different artists get plays, and then they get asked to the fetes. So it was not really born out of a creative musical development, more so than a commercial one, I think.
That's interesting. Yeah. Now, another thing that we spoke about a few days ago was the close link between music and dance. right? And you were saying that that is something we need to capitalize on. Can you just expound on that a little?
No, I mean, I'm a big fan of Afrobeats. I listen to it a lot. And I think it's really taken the world by storm. A lot of the reason it's doing that is because of dance challenges. I love all the dances that come out of Africa. And if one of my favorite artists out of Africa, A-Star, he makes killer beats. But for every beat he drops, he has he brings on a dancer from the continent or even from Europe who makes this like short 1 minute dance challenge. They choreograph a whole dance to this song, and then that goes viral, and people from all over the world want to learn this dance challenge, and that really has a global impact because people from all over can access it, even if they don't understand the song really or what they're talking about. They can move their body, and I think when you move your body to a song, it really allows you to connect with that culture more. And I think that's what's one big difference I think from music on the continent from music from the Caribbean. We don't really have dances to our songs. I mean, we go to Soca Fete and we jump up and wave and whine. But a foreigner comes and they want to know how to move and they can't. There's not really much else you can do. But that's not to say our dancers are lacking. We have some amazing dancers in Trinidad, right? So I think we need to marry the dance and music a little more better in our culture right now. I mean, just look at Marshall. Marshall has 6 of the best dancers in Trinidad dancing behind him at every fete. Just put Turbo to choreograph a little 1 minute dance to slow wine and make that a challenge on Instagram, TikTok now, and Snapchat, all of these platforms. And that could really push it global. Like, even if you don't understand what soca is, what they're singing about, or have no idea what it is, you can see somebody dancing and you can learn it, an easy dance that you could learn. And that would also allow more cohesion amongst the whole Caribbean. Because if you look at what's coming out of Africa, there's music from all across the continent. And it's not the same. There's subtle differences in East African music, West African, and South African. And only like a real connoisseur would like know the differences. But each country also has its own dances. But dancers from across the continent do all of them. I think there's so much creativity out of all the countries that, and it's not a competition as per se. The dancers would dance the guara, but also the pilolo and all these different dances from all across the continent. I think we could also develop something similar in the Caribbean. We don't have to go at it alone as a TRINI music trying to push global or Jamaican music. We can, if we all sort of harness the power of our dancers and all sort of do this thing and create dances to our music, we can all rise together, and I think that would remove the sort of issue of having different types of soccas from different islands, and Bajan soca and St. Lucian soca. They could all shine on their own because they would have a Bajan soca dance and a specific dance to them, and then a specific dance in Jamaica. And sort of when you go to a party, you could play all of these and dance all together. And I think together we'd be able to push that further than just soca
really like
alone.
That. Yeah. No, when you had mentioned that to me, that's a connection I didn't make before. But so it had me thinking, all right? I'm now started to think of music and dance in parallel. So we see changing, let's say, musical styles in Trinidad, musical preferences. So we're going more towards something fast-paced. For those who don't know, after soca, my next favorite genre is parang. And that is also, I would say, I wouldn't say it's on a decline. I would just say that our generation isn't as receptive. Because let's take, for example, Los Alumnos is only getting bigger and better, right? But at the same time, I would feel so strange inviting one of my friends to come a parang line with me, so let's say there's a girl and I want to take her out. Like, the last thing on my mind is to bring her to a parang concert. I actually asked girls this. I asked them, do you like parang? And it's like, always like, not really. I mean, I could listen to it for like 10 minutes.
What? But who you liming with, boy? How could you not like parang?
I need to find these new people. I need to lime in more people in Paramin and those sort of things.
I don't know. From my experience, I've seen a lot of young people coming up playing amazing parang, especially in the schools and stuff. So, what do you think needs to be done in that?
Well, I also think that it's not really that it's going. I think we'll always have the parent community specifically because it's a genre that encourages community. So let's take for example my parang band. It's my family, all right. Let's take for example the parang bands in Paramin. They start because either family or friends come together to play. I think it's a really important element. However, the crowds that you see at the parang events, there's a big difference between the crowds that you would see at a soca event. And hopefully, and I think that it's never going to die, but I really wish it was more, more like an excitement around Christmas time to let's go some parang shows,
Yeah, no, I feel what you're saying, and I see that desire, but also you have to think of what's good, right? Is it good that we have a lot of people at a parang fete, for instance, or do you think it's better to keep that family structure and closeness of the parang in your house, and you invite family and the whole neighborhood comes to one house? So I think if it grew to that extent and had big events, you would lose that intimacy of parang bands being your neighbor or your friend or your family, your cousins. So I'm not sure if that could be a viable road we go on. It could be more popular for the whole country, but you might lose some personal aspects that you really love about parang.
But one of the reasons too, as I said, I'm looking at music in parallel to dance now, and I realize that what kind of dancing we see going on to parang music. You get in a little line dance, two-step, three-step. You don't see our generation not on that us, And I think that's the same thing with Calypso. Calypso is more slower paced. You'll dance with a partner face to face. Face to face. And, and I think that along with the change in preferences we have, and I don't know which one came first, the change in preference to dance or change in preference to music. But I think that I think that's one of the reasons why parang is in the space it is right now, Now what I would do is encourage people, like you wouldn't believe it. It was 2 years ago at a fete, humor fete. They spent like the last half hour of the party playing old time Calypso.
Yeah.
I want to tell you that.
That's so sweet,
that, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Yeah,
and I really wish people I'm trying to imagine my younger siblings, they're growing up, they're not hearing it as often as I would have.
Yeah.
I just want these DJs, y'all don't mash up the fete, y'all just play a two.
People love it. People love it. I don't understand.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So some throwbacks, even around Christmas time, you'll have these, they'll play some soca parang and it will destroy the party, I just hope it stays that way. I really do. Oh boy. So we're in a different musical space. I don't want to get in too in depth today, take up all your time. But this was a really nice conversation, Luke. I really hope that we can have this again.
Thanks for having me, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Love
Big things in the future. For those who don't know, Luke also comes on quite often with our family band, whether it's the flute or the pan. And it's really just a good time on stage.
Always.
Always a good time.
I'm an honorary gooding.
Right. I like that. So I'm going to, of course, put his Instagram in the description. You'll go follow him up. You have a YouTube page as well? With some of your...
don't have much stuff on YouTube, but things are going to be going up soon.
I like the song of that. The next big thing in music was here on my podcast. I just like to say that. All right, Luke. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man.